This is the most important chapter of the entire Odyssey. All at once, it marks a huge turn in Odysseus' character, in Greek ideology, and potentially in your own life. We'll see what exactly that is as Odysseus comes face to face with the dead. Hello and welcome back. My name is Zachary May, and today we are reading the great books of Western civilization together, continuing with the Odyssey. This is the Robert Fagel's translation, Book 11, and we'll start with a brief summary. Odysseus and his crew sail north for a full day before they cross the ocean river at the edge of the earth, a land of permanent darkness. It is here that Odysseus and two of his men disembark and dig a small trench into which the blood of the sacrificial animals is poured, as Circe had instructed them. With this done, the spirits of the dead rise out of Erebus, the house of death. Odysseus draws his sword, holding it over the trench, for Circe had instructed him to not let any of the spirits drink of the blood of the sacrifice until Tiresias had, and he had learned what he needed to know. As he waits, the spirit of his shipmate Elpenor appears. Apparently he had fallen off of Circe's roof after a long night of drinking, and Odysseus did not know. Elpenor begs Odysseus to return to Circe's house and find his body and bury him, giving him full honors. Odysseus agrees and then sees the ghost of his mother appear as well. She does not speak to him, nor show any recognition that he is there. He weeps, for he did not know that she had died, but he does not allow her to drink the blood, remembering his instructions. Tiresias finally appears. He calls out to Odysseus by name, holding a golden scepter, and he asks him to stand down so that he may approach the sacrifice. Odysseus obeys, and the prophet drinks the blood before launching into his prophecy. Tiresias proclaims that the god Poseidon will make Odysseus' journey home difficult, for he is angered at him for blinding his son, the Cyclops. Even so, he and his men still have a chance to reach home, if only they can keep themselves from disturbing the cattle of the sun god, Helios, pastured on the island of Thrinacia. If, however, they eat the cattle, every single one of them will die, except for Odysseus himself, who will only return home after many years, broken and alone, only to find a world of hurt at home, with a whole host of suitors eating through his house and wooing his wife. Tiresias expects that Odysseus will likely kill those men. With that done, though, he is obliged to make one final journey. He must carry an oar as far inland as he can, until he finds a people that don't know the ocean at all. When someone looks at him and asks him why he's carrying a fan over his shoulder, that is the place. He must plant the oar in the ground and offer sacrifices to Poseidon and the rest of the gods. Only then may he return to Ithaca to live out the long years of his life, where he will die, Tiresias says, at an old age, surrounded by loved ones. Odysseus accepts his fate, as prophesied, to be true, but then asks Tiresias why the ghost of his mother does not speak to him. Tiresias explains that the spirits of the dead will only speak or regain consciousness if Odysseus allows them to drink the blood of the sacrifice before him. He then returns to the house of death. But Odysseus remains and allows his mother to drink the blood of the sacrifice at last. Upon doing so, she immediately recognizes him and weeps that he is still not at home. She then tells him what she knows about the state of affairs on Ithaca at the time of her death. Telemachus still held his lands in peace, Penelope had not yet taken a husband, and his father Laertes, although still grief-stricken like she was for Odysseus, is still alive. Odysseus tries to embrace his mother, only to find that his arms pass through her shape. She explains further, when mortals die, they become only shadows, shades of their former selves. With that, she takes her leave. Persephone, queen of the underworld, sends more spirits to talk with Odysseus. They are all famous daughters and wives from Greek mythology. Odysseus questions each of them one by one, learning their stories and lineages. But at this point, Odysseus stops his story, asking Arete, the queen, and Alcinous, the king of Phaeacia, if he can go to bed at last to prepare for his journey home. Arete responds by calling upon the Phaeacian nobles in the court to give him even more treasure to bring back with him to Ithaca, for they can all see now that his need was much greater than they had first assumed. Alcinous echoes this. They cannot send him home first thing in the morning, for they need more time to gather more treasure to give to Odysseus. They need at least another day. Thus, there's no cause for him to go to bed early, and he can continue his story. He then praises Odysseus' trustworthiness and skill as a storyteller before asking him to continue. Odysseus is exhausted, but agrees. After all the famous women, Odysseus is shocked to see the ghost of Agamemnon. Drinking the blood, Agamemnon recognizes Odysseus and reaches out to him, in vain. He explains what happened to him upon his arrival home. Agamemnon is infuriated with Clytemnestra, his wife, for betraying him, and announces that he holds this crime as a shame against all women. He urges Odysseus not to trust any of them with anything, and never tell them too much of the truth. He admits that Penelope could not ever be as bad as his wife, but still, when he goes home, he must do so secretly, and not presume what sort of welcome he'll receive. Finally, he asks for news of his son, Orestes, but Odysseus does not know. Next, more of Odysseus' slain comrades appear. Odysseus allows Achilles to come forward and speak. Achilles asks Odysseus why he is here. After Odysseus answers, citing his unluckiness, Odysseus goes on to praise how great Achilles is by contrast. Achilles rebukes him harshly, protesting that he would rather be a slave of a poor farmer than be dead. He then asks Odysseus about his family, his son, his father. He wishes more than anything else that he could be alive for one more day, just to protect his father from those around him that would seek to rob him. Odysseus admits that he knows nothing about Peleus and what has happened to him, but about Achilles' son, Neoptolemus, he can tell plenty. Odysseus himself went to fetch the boy from Skyros and brought him to Troy to fight with them in the war. He was a great fighter and a good tactician, and was with them when they finally took the city. Hearing this, Achilles' spirit runs away across the dark fields, rejoicing. Odysseus wants to speak to more spirits, to hear more stories and lineages, but they begin to swarm around him in a frenzy. Fearing that this is a sign that Queen Persephone may no longer find him welcome, he retreats and gets back onto his boat to leave in peace. First, I'll explain some of the strange events that are going on in Book 11 so that we know exactly what is going on and why. Odysseus sails to the House of Death, like in a boat. The fact that this is possible is mind-boggling, especially to us modern readers. He doesn't have to ascend into the sky. He doesn't have to dig down. He can just move laterally and get there? Not exactly. First, he has to cross the ocean river, and that is key. The ocean river is what in Greek mythology was believed to encircle the entire world, a world which they believed was flat. So, if you cross the boundary of the mortal world, where are you? Not in the mortal world. That is why he must cross it before arriving at the land of the dead. We finally get to see firsthand what it means to be dead in Greek mythology. As Odysseus' mother says when he finds her to be incorporeal and untouchable, this is no deception. This is just the way of mortals when we die. The fire in all its fury burns the body down to ashes. Once life slips from the white bones and the spirit, rustling, flitters away, flown like a dream. In addition, most of the dead possess no consciousness of their identities or themselves without drinking of the blood of the sacrifice. You will notice, however, that there are exceptions to this rule. The first is Tiresias, who we were already told last chapter is given wisdom even in death. But also apparently Elpenor, Odysseus' shipmate that fell off a roof from being too drunk. He also knows who he is? What's going on? This, I think, is because he has not yet been buried. Remember that we saw a very similar scene in the Iliad. Patroclus' ghost appears to Achilles, begging him to bury him, saying that he's not being let into the house of the dead because he hasn't been buried yet. Thus, I think this is probably the most adequate explanation for why Elpenor, too, has a sense of self without drinking the sacrifice. Tiresias' prophecy confirms what we already knew. Odysseus messed up big time in revealing his name to the Cyclops. Now Poseidon has it out for him. Despite this, he can still get home with all of his men, so long as they can avoid eating the cattle of the sun god. But we already know that they won't leave him alone. So let's move on to what's next for Odysseus. He's gonna go home, he's gonna kill the suitors, and then he has to walk inland with an oar until he finds people that don't know about the ocean. Perhaps to spread the glory of Poseidon to a land where his influence would be lacking, or perhaps for Odysseus' own benefit, to make him grounded, so to speak, or rooted for good. But Tiresias also foretells Odysseus' death. He will return home and live a long, long life, and will finally die peacefully, surrounded by loved ones. This is strange as prophecies go. Think of Menelaus' prophecy that he gets from Proteus, or Achilles' prophecy about his eternal glory, because glory is missing from Odysseus' prophecy. There's no mention of it at all. He's simply going to go home and live a normal life. We're going to find out why glory is not here, and why that is significant. Odysseus takes his time in the underworld, and as such, he gets the chance to meet with many different ghosts of those long dead. By looking carefully at the identities and stories of all of the ghosts that Odysseus speaks to, those he knows as well as those he doesn't, we can clearly see the message that is being sent to him. Most of them are people he's never met. We are told that these strangers are sent to him by Persephone, so they were specifically chosen, with a purpose, I might add. They are all well-known women from Greek mythology, wives and daughters of princes, but also some consorts and children of the gods. Some of them have happy endings, some of them ended in disgrace, but they were all well-known. That is to say, there were no moderate, normal people amongst them. Then we have the ghosts of the people that he does know, his mother, Agamemnon, Achilles, and Ajax. Agamemnon shares that Aegisthus killed him, thanks to his wife's treachery. We've heard it many times by now. Clytemnestra was seduced by Aegisthus while he was away. Agamemnon rightfully condemns both of their actions, but this is the first time that we hear that Agamemnon brought Cassandra, the daughter of King Priam, home with him, as a trophy, I presume. This isn't necessarily that odd by ancient Greek standards, but we do know that King Agamemnon has a tendency to hold the honor of those women that he captures as higher than his wife. There's one more piece of information that really changes your perspective on this story, though. Homer doesn't tell it to us, but all of the ancient Greeks would have known. Agamemnon sacrificed his daughter to Zeus before sailing to Troy. That was how he received the pledge, the bow of Zeus's head, pledging that he would live to see Troy fall. Put all those pieces together and we see that this is a man who was very willing to sacrifice his family for glory and honor. Glory, that one thing left out of Odysseus' prophecy. That glory which was desired by the warriors of Troy more than anything else. Isn't that what everybody's supposed to live for? Enter Achilles. The shade of Achilles approaches, and Odysseus hails him, explaining his presence. Never yet have I set foot on native ground. My life is endless trouble. But you, Achilles, there's not a man in the world more blessed than you. There never has been, there never will be one. When you were alive, we Argives honored you as a god, and now down here, I see you lord it over the dead in all your power. So grieve no more at dying, great Achilles. He's talking about the eternal glory that Achilles was promised and that he earned through his death. Surely, Odysseus is saying, now that he's received it, he's enjoying it and he's happy with it and it was worth it. Achilles responds, no winning words about death to me, shining Odysseus. By God, I'd rather slave on earth for another man, some dirt-poor tenant farmer who scrapes to keep alive, than rule down here over all the breathless dead. But come, tell me the news of my gallant son. Forget my glory, I don't care. It's not worth being dead. I wish I could live a life without glory. I wish I could be a slave instead of be dead. Also, I miss my son. Tell me about him. And boy, how I wish I could live just one more day in order to save my dad from his toxic neighbors. At this point, the meanings of all of the apparitions, as well as all the chapters of the epic, become abundantly clear. Summed up, there are 3 lessons that Odysseus takes from the House of Death that we can too. Number 1, it is better to live than to die, even if that is a life without glory, even if that is a life full of suffering. We've seen Odysseus integrate that into his life already. 2, glory is worth less than life. And furthermore, chasing after it doesn't mean that your ending will be happy. It just means that everyone's going to know how you turned out. Or, in familiar terms, moderation is best in all things. 3, family is worth living and fighting for. It is for the love of her son that Odysseus' mother dies. Achilles is more concerned with his son and his father than his glory. Even in death, Agamemnon too is concerned with his son and what has become of him. This is why there is no glory in Odysseus' prophecy, and it is why Tiresias is sure that he is going to die after a long life and will be surrounded by his loved ones. Because starting now, Odysseus knows that that's what he's supposed to live his life for. Starting now, he knows that death is not an escape from pain, and he never again speaks of it as such like he does before. And starting now, he will accept no more dalliance or delays in getting home. What happened at Circe's will not happen again. And perhaps that's another reason why Circe sent him to the underworld. Perhaps it is only from the dead that he can learn what to live for. Only with that knowledge can you find a spirit tempered to endure. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. Also, leave a comment below addressing what you thought was most helpful or interesting in this chapter, or answer the question, what do you take from Odysseus' adventure in the underworld? Is there anything else that we can learn from it? We'll see you in the next video.